Narges, please join me on stage. A warm applause for Narges Kalhor. Take your chair. So we were planning actually to have also Julian Warner over, but unfortunately he's sick, so he can't join. So yeah, it's going to be the two of us for now. How are you feeling after having seen the two films together?
Hello everyone. Amazing, actually. I should say I received movies before that, and I had this opportunity to watch the movies. But I watched first of all the short movie and then the long one, and I recognized this following was the best. That makes sense. The dialogue between two movies. And I should just say short something, Oskar, because I watched your movie, the short one at home, and I loved the opening scene, and I was amused because of your composition and the golden point that the white guy come and take a picture. And then I followed the story. I was just, what? He was not from Africa, the filmmaker, and I was a little bit a skeptic, I should say.
Yeah, that's really interesting, I think. Analyzing Oskar's presence in his film without him telling us what he thought about it.
Yeah. And I should say, Oskar, I'm come from Middle East, and I am a little bit sensible about white and not white, and going to not white countries to recognize the pain of colonies. Then I'm so glad. I wanted to actually call Dennis, and I said no, I don't come. But I'm so glad I have a friend, Denise. She's from Brazilian, and she's a great filmmaker. And she is actually from Africa. The grandparents, they are moved with the white people to Brazilian. And she makes wonderful documentary. I'm so sorry I sent your movie to her because I thought, okay, I'm wrong person. I'm just too politic issue behind my opinion as a filmmaker to recognize your work. And she loves your movie. That's so amazing. She sent me a message, and she said, Narges, I cried because my grandmother, she worked a lot in the house of the white people, and actually she was not really old, and she died. And my grandmother told us that actually the people that she knew about that time, they worked every day and died every day. And she loves, the filmmaker told me, she loves your ritual poesy that you put it in movie because she knew that the rituals, and after she explained how she was falling in love in your work, I start again to watch your movie, and I'm really congratulations to your work. And now with this combi, I love these two movies from two men filmmakers, such a feminine film, and we kind of started about subjects, but I want to just tell you, both of you, it's amazing. And I'm not critical, actually, I'm filmmaker. I want just speak about your poesy and poetic and philosophy behind your cameras.
But you say you had the feeling there was a certain femininity in both films. Maybe we can go into that a bit. Yeah.
Sure.
How would you pinpoint?
It's really interesting because we are from Middle East and Europe. We have from our Abraham religion. We say I think it's a Johanna. They said at first was the word, and then the word was on the hand of God, and the God is the word. But I just search it in before Islam and before Abraham religion. That's amazing. In Middle East, we say we are one, but we are separated each other, and the love is just this trying to become one. That's mean the love is the pain, as the birth in elevator, and that's actual love is kind of reaction, and the language comes because of the reaction. And I find it amazing for both of your works that I could just have a dialogue. I'm really serious to know about your opinion, but for me it was really interesting to going back to motherhood and putting out the God subject like Abraham religion, but going back to Ruth inside of the womb and giving birth a woman and being part of the house and being part of the earth. How was for you? Please tell me.
Well, in case of Oscar's film, yeah, it's so I have also a schizophrenic approach to the films because our result of selecting them is of course the base of a discussion amongst 5 programmers. I can definitely say that I was really excited about both of them, and I was strongly advocating to show them. But yes, we were talking about gender or femininity or a sense of femininity in the films, and yeah, I had mixed. Well, it was not something which came to mind first for me. I think in Oscar's film it was more. It was other layers actually. Yeah, I think more like the cultural negotiation in the film and him being present in the film. Maybe in that sense also it was relevant that he's like a guy, because you're like so in a way also self-ironic as this character. Like your character is super annoying, of course. Like he's there with the camera, like being super pushy, and it's to the level of irony. So that I thought was a very nice take of himself on himself as a male white guy in this place. But yes, we will talk about later about the fact how you interacted with everyone there and what brought you to the place, of course. But yeah, that was something I thought about. And in All Quiet at Sunrise. Actually, I was thinking more about the director behind the film when I watched it. So the characters and the question of motherhood or femininity on the level of storytelling was definitely touching to me. But at the same time, I thought, like this is seemingly a very ambitious director. This film has like many layers, and it was really challenging in some moments for me to follow the film. So it was a challenge to me as a spectator, like following the many layers of the film.
Maybe because of that it was not classic dramaturgy that we know. We are follow the boy and just coming to Lucy's story, and it's not really usual West dramaturgy in cinema, isn't it? We were a little bit just, okay. It's
but I think that's less the point. Maybe I was thinking about like a director being extremely ambitious and forcing an idea onto me, which challenges me, is often for me connected to an idea of male auteur cinema. So sometimes, and I'm very sometimes very strict with men. So sometimes I'm a bit repulsed by that, actually. Like if somebody is asking too much of me, and like it can feel self-indulgent. But in that film, I didn't feel it was self-indulgent. It was just a challenge which I enjoyed.
We can just compare 2 movies. Both of them, they push us as a audience to go through their cameras as a photographer, Windsor. That means it's something certain behind it. It's not just I show my feeling. It's just a straight go to the point that you are just accept the logic of him, because otherwise doesn't make any sense. Becoming a house is just nice as a text, but in moving pictures, I should come in through your Windsor. Otherwise, I'm lost. I think, what the heck? She is now a house, and the lady at the end, she is the earth, or just going down. I don't know why. Do you know what I mean? That's mean. I'm glad that you're fine with them and you took them into your program, because I think that that their aim, that we are just a little bit suffering, they push us in this Windsor.
But I can, something you said earlier, I can really relate to that, of not being sure about one's own relation to a film. Sometimes for a lack of knowledge of the context in which it was made. And then also I try to see the film for what it is without trying to read about the context. So this is like when filmmakers send us like information about their films, I never read it. I just watch the film and try to read the film as film first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then I didn't know anything about your movie. I knew your picture, and Oskar is not black guy, and then affected actually my response. And in your case, I read just your synopsis, and after that I was, oops, I don't have any idea. And then I started to read the Wikipedia about Lucy and make a search. But I didn't need that, actually. I could just start with your movie, because you're just so clever to put the information, boring information, such beautiful in 3 times. By the way, everything is 3 times. That's amazing. That I would love to hear your philosophy behind that. That was great. And the most important information came 3 times too. Yeah.
I think actually both films have some riddles which are unsolvable without talking deeply to the directors or knowing them. That's
amazing. That's
yeah.
a cinema. We are not just here enjoy the time. It's just coming in your world and just thinking about it and develop it in our head. Maybe tomorrow, a day after tomorrow. But I'm really glad to come in your visions, that you tell me the backgrounds. And yeah.
Don't you find it like at festivals sometimes a bit, sometimes it's really spoiling the fun, like inviting the director directly after the film to tell us about our open questions, and we can't take them home because they are answered. I think it's sometimes very brutal.
But that's your job, and that's the business. Come on.
So how do you feel about the language in All Quiet at Sunrise? It's the Meiling village dialect, and actually it's double confusing now for me, because I had seen the film first, and in the subtitles it said fictional language. And now the version we showed, which I didn't know had different subtitles, it was suddenly the Meiling village dialect. But still, I don't know whether it exists. Maybe.
At first, I thought it's a failure because of the subtitles, because most of my movies, they have failure in subtitles. But then I recognize, we make a joke, but it's really amazing what you had, and you put it in the vision way. I should say that the language, that actually the words that we use it to connect each other, and we are thinking that the human beings, the philosophy and everything that's come because of the words that we are just change it and develop our civilization. You just going back and just put it another version of theory, and that's amazing. That's just possible in cinema, nothing else. I don't think that can have a function in novel, because what you show us, that's mean being inside the other is the language, and the best metaphor for me was the apple. I'm really excited to know it's in China, apple like us, because for us it's apple, Adam and Hawa, but I'm sure in China has apple something else. But falling down the apple from the tree, and that was the case of Lucy lose the life, for me was the best poesy in cinema that you make. I remembered, talk about that. It was like Abbas Kiarostami, something that's not, you don't need to interpretate that, but you made it so well that I can just have a many fantasy after your movie about the language and what is that actually the beginning of that.
Can you relate to what I said, like this reflex of having a desire to know something, like a background of a film? Is that something which comes to mind to you when you watch? Or in case of these two films? With Oskar, you already talked about it. For you, it was a political question to understand the relation of that white person to his the milieu around him. But how was it with the other film? Did you like accept the mystery, or were you like constantly trying to make sense? Like, was that a reflex you had?
No, I am not German. I could. No, I enjoyed that because I was at the beginning in his word, and I don't have any issue. Have a more logical point to continue. I'm just finding his word, and I accept everything what he says to me, because I think they are human. Maybe they body language in China is different as me in Middle East, but I watched the eye of the mother, and I accept her as a mother. It's done. I don't need any other fact to tell me about the characters and the story. No, I was really into it, and just something is because we are in the middle of the world with Abraham religion. I should say again, that's mean everything that is metaphor. We are not going to Greece. We are just first of all going back to Jesus and a kind of our God and apple and everything. That's mean the metaphor, the same symbol that I wanted to just create my fantasy. It was a little bit difficult to figure out, it could be in China, same or something else. But if it's not China and it's in South America, it can be exact same function for me.
How about we invite the directors? Yeah?
That's the best
You
part.
ready?
I'm so happy we are done.
We are not done.
No,
Okay.
but I'm really excited to hear about, I have many questions. Please come.
Yes, please join us. Please have a warm welcome for the directors of the films, Oskar Weimar and Tu Sin. Yeah. And we also have a translator with us, Maja Kobetska, who is supporting Tzu. So how did that feel for the two of you to hear us analyze a little bit your films and wrestling with the mysteries around it and them? And actually, maybe you could talk about this, like your choices of leaving open specific things in your films, which is always, in a certain way, of course, a gamble. Yeah. Maybe, Oskar, you want to start? For you, it was immediately politically charged, like from the right moment.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Very much appreciate that. It wasn't as harsh and unwelcoming as I perhaps feared. So thank you. No, I didn't feel that. I didn't fear that. No, I'm very glad to be here. So thank you again. In terms of leaving aspects of the interpretation open, I mean, without wanting to explain too much about the kind of backstory, I do want to say a couple of things about how the film was made, because that might help inform, I suppose, the content of the film as well. I was very cognizant of my own positionality when I arrived in Kenya. The reason that I was there in Nairobi was because my partner, Soph, was working for the UN, so we were staying in that house, living with the people that you saw on screen. They were domestic workers in that house, and that house is a very old colonial house that was built in the hinterlands of Nairobi, which is like a kind of very posh area now where the embassies exist. Anyway, what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of break, I guess, that sort of convention of being a resident in a place that was serviced by domestic workers, and to do that by making a film together. So after they finished work, we would work on the film, and we didn't have a script. We started with this idea of this woman becoming the house, and we sort of started from the first scene, and then we made our way from there onwards. So the reason that there's kind of a very sort of slippery, maybe kind of DIY, sort of very kind of undercooked, sort of rough around the edges quality was because it was all those things. And I think that was something that was a strength of the film, actually. Like, my idea was to create something that was transparent in its artificiality. It wasn't something that tried to sell you on the idea that this was a complete world sealed off from the one that you're sitting in or the one that I was sitting in. It was about creating something that would point to that world and to point to my involvement in producing or facilitating that environment. And so I guess I'll sort of just leave it there for now, but I guess in terms of the sort of openness to interpretation, I suppose, I guess that was something that happened because of the collaboration, I think, in lots of ways. You know, we had a very sort of messy, sort of additive approach. Anything could go, you know, one thing led to the next thing, and then we met these amazing dancers through some friends producing the film, and we simply just really wanted them to be involved, and so we wanted to figure out a way to incorporate them into the film. And so we did. And then I thought we'd leave the interpretation up to people who watched it. So that's a little bit of this backstory. I hope that doesn't explain too much, but at least something for you to chew on. Yeah.
Yeah, be careful what you answer and how much.
I obviously could speak for a lot longer, but I'll stop there because I want to hear what Jules got to say about the films too.
Yeah, actually, since you were talking about dancing, I think it's a very interesting metaphor for the way I experience your film, because you constantly move between giving us a lot of information and complexity, and then leaving out a lot or making it ungraspable. So I'm constantly drawn in to understand and then pushed away. As you noticed, I'm German, so yeah, I know. But maybe you can talk about your process of shaping this, like how to deal with information and how to weave your film like it is, like in this loose kind of structure. Yeah.
Yeah, I will try to say something in Chinese. It's easier to explain that. And at first, I think I should congratulate to Oscar's film because I want to be a house. Well, it's a I understand. 就是我开始明白为什么这是这样一个顺序在这个片子当中。
Okay, so he started to understand why there is a certain pattern of editing in a film like that.
不是，就是为什么会是对，就是先放这个片子，然后再放。
Yes. When it comes to programming, that actually first Drusian's film makes more as a sort of a story that if the short film would be the first one screened, that would be a different story.
对，然后我觉得我想先说完，因为我刚刚那个对，然后 I want to finish the about Oscar's feeling first and ask the question and answer the question and 我觉得在那个电影里面，我看到了一个其实最开始是被忽略的视角，就是他是里面的一个主人，但是他是以就是一个原来没有被看到的视角开始的对，这是一件非常让我觉得惊奇的事情啊。
So what he finds very interesting in Oscar, in your film, Oscar, is that you start from a perspective that is normally ignored. So we don't really see the owner of the house but just yes, the perspective of the workers in the house.
对
OK
然后其实对于我来说，我看到了一个苹果，其实这个苹果它可能一直存在，但是我以前没有注意过它。
So it's a little bit like seeing an apple, but then you just see an apple every day, but you don't really notice it. Yeah, so it's just noticing something about a thing that is very ordinary.
对于这个电影来说，它可以非常复杂，这是我的一种思考的方法。因为我的脑子非常的容易变得复杂。It's easy to get complicated, you know, in my brain. But 我觉得有一个念头是很简单的，就是有的时候它变得复杂，是因为我想要去逃避一些什么东西，而并非我是想要这么复杂，就是。
所以你现在是指你的电影吧？
对，现在我在说我的电影。
So when it comes to my process of creating the film, is that it seems very complex, not necessarily because it is really complex, but it's just that I want to avoid something, just to yes avoid discussing something.
Yes, just 就像有的时候我妈妈一直在我旁边唠叨，然后我就会想一个中东的国王的故事。或者不，我不知道，反正就是可能阿拉伯的劳伦斯吧 ，whatever， 就是这样。
OK。OK。
所以会有这个电影，对。
So for example, like my mom normally she just talks a lot around me, and then I thought about a story of a king from, for example, Middle East.
Yes, just yes, that's why Lucy is coming, just because suddenly there's a Lucy. You know, it's totally just far from a very far universe. It's like called the people, like the human race, the first human. You know, it's try to make me think. Okay, let's talk about the Lucy. Then I can see my mom. And then gradually you find this some clue that maybe yeah, you can see the house and also the apple. I'm not sure because I told Denise that I don't want to explain the story, maybe not this time, but yeah, just maybe we can talk about the feeling of the first why I try to create that story, because the boundary between me and my mother, there's a strong boundary, but I'm the only child. Yeah, in China there's a one child policy, so we cannot avoid to get in touch with my mother, and but it's a little bit noisy sometimes, and also hard to connect. 对，就是对，然后我觉得这个电影它的初衷其实就是通过一种复杂去抵达最简单的东西。
So the origin of this story, like the original idea, was to take something to go through a very complex way to actually look at something that is very simple.
它像
So that I just try to understand. That's mean I'm just really, I take it really easy. I am mom too, and I talk a lot, and I can understand you really good. That's mean you wanted to have a word, to have a in your fantasy, trying to figure out how could be the relationship between the first human and her child, because they didn't have any word to change. Is it that's what you mean about the basically idea? Just trying to figure out how was the relationship or conversation between Lucy and her mom?
对它我觉得这里面有一些东西是因误会，这是一种对，它是一个错误，但是对，就是建立那个联系的过程，它其实可能是一个瞬间的事情，对，然后在这个故事里面，我觉得我给到了一个答案啊，大概是这样，我不确定我能不能回答他问题。
So when it comes to this communications that we very often, especially when it comes to just communicating with mothers, for example, we there's a lot of misunderstandings, and so there is like this moment that you can just establish some sort of connection.
对，就比方说我终于在我觐见这个国王。中东的国王，然后我终于等到了有一天，我看到了我给他敬奉的那个食物上面是我妈妈给我的苹果，就是这样，就是说，突然我在那个这个敬奉的东西上面看到了我跟我妈妈有关的东西，就是这种感觉。
但是我还是不太懂那个中东的国王的。
just like the 就是一个。可以是随便是什么都可以，一个 fairy tale 就是 OK 就是在这个，你可以不一定要说这个意思，就是我不好意思，因为它是。
So yes, it's basically just taking the Lucy and his and her mother's story just to talk about the relationship between the mother and the child. In contemporary times, I guess.
Yes. I guess it's of course like an endless task to put this film into words, which is so fascinating about it.
So sorry, Maya. It's a little bit hard to translate the.
I love what happened in your head. That's amazing. We're around 70-80%. We are just, and that's so no. I got it. And I think many times you just put it in your vision, like he wrote his tease, but it wasn't actually what no one can read. That's the disconnecting in the.
Yeah, it's sometimes just I want to figure out why my mom just trying to lead me to her house in just a village. You know, there's no one lives there. It's truly happened in my life. So there's always some apples, some some maybe there's something. You notice something, but. It's not at the beginning,
I have a speculation which came up during the conversation now. I discovered a new relation of the two films, maybe. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I'm also curious what Oskar has to say about the feature. If both films are exploring something which we cannot put easily into words, are they connected through that? Is it that? Like, is it in your film the connection to one's own mother, which is very difficult to put into words, and it grows through our whole lives, obviously? So the metaphor of Lucy from a remote age, very far removed from our current life, becomes a metaphor for this, for exploring the love to one's own mother, and the mother, of course, to oneself as a child. And in your film, it seems to be losing one's senses, which is also unimaginable for many of us. and also becoming a building, which is a totally abstract idea. Although the adjectives you use in the end are really beautiful. It's cold, it's lazy, and it's always asking for something. But it seems to me that the films are actually connected through this. Like, in the center of both films, there are maybe ideas of something which we cannot grasp.
No. I want just ask you, please tell us, because for me was the friend of Anne really important, and what she said at the end really interesting, and I could feel it. That was more than the becoming a home, because she is not just listening the wall, she is listening the earth. And please just a little bit explain about what she said at the end, the scene before your film finished.
Well, like I said before, I think my film was a collaboration, so I can speak on behalf of my own interpretation, but I guess the people who were also involved in it have their own interpretation, and that I wouldn't want to speak for. But for me, I think what I was particularly interested in about where we ended up was this idea of like people existing within frameworks like colonialism, for example, that have these expressions that get turned into stone, you know, and wood and gardens, etc., and also institutions and those sorts of things. And in each case, they have an impact on people's lives. So in a sense, I think what we were kind of working with was this idea of that relationship and the way in which that dynamic works both ways, you know, like being one of the interesting things about being like in Kenya and getting to know Kenyan people was that there are expressions of that colonial past that find that are animated in different ways that I wasn't really expecting, you know. And I think what maybe wasn't fully articulated in the film, but what I think it was suggesting was that these sorts of frameworks can be impressed upon people and can have a significant impact on the way that they even see the world. So, I mean, I think for many people there, you know, this is one sort of banal example, you know, but I was talking to my friend, so Jeep, who was part of the production team, you know, and we would talk a lot about, you know, the Mau Mau, etc. He lived in Mathare, which is where the first scene of this film was shot, which is an informal settlement on the outskirts of Nairobi, right next to an airbase where Queen Victoria visited and became queen. She became queen there. So it's got this very fantastic sort of symbolic resonance. Also the home of the Mau Mau and the political resistance and independence movement there. And you know, and yet even him, like his favorite soccer team is England. You know, like he loves the Premier League, like, and he has this fascination and almost a pride, I guess, with English culture. And I just found that really fascinating. And you know, maybe that didn't make it all the way into the film, but I guess I wanted to say that just because these relationships are much more complicated than we think they are. And I think maybe that was part of the reason that these dances were put in the end. If you didn't notice, that was the same music that was behind this sound that the house was producing or was produced around. And I guess the idea with that was to just connect in some ways even the exuberance and the sort of innocence of life in these dances, in the movement of these people who are expressing themselves, was in some ways still connected with this framework that has existed for many centuries there in the country. And I've totally lost the question, but hopefully I've said something that can, I wanted to say that.
It's all good, and you made me think also about an idea which I see in connection to your film, but also the program of the night in total. A question, and maybe also to your work actually, like the question of a transcultural cinema. So you have been shooting in Nairobi. Your new feature is also not shot in Australia, so you are exploring this very consciously. And Narges, you have shot in Germany, negotiating your past in Iran, and now we created like an evening which is now also bringing in the Chinese context. So I thought a lot about this idea of cinema being something transcultural, and at the same time in your film I don't see that so much, or I don't understand it so much. So I'm curious also in your film whether there's a transcultural layer which I don't see, or whether for you it is actually a desire to specifically address the Chinese context. Yeah, so let's talk a bit about this. Like, is this something we expect from cinema, to be transcultural, break national barriers? Yeah.
Okay.
And just one thing, for those who want to join the conversation, there's an audience mic, so please raise your hand and communicate with the person with the microphone, which is the person back there. So yeah, just get the microphone ready for you to speak, and we will do a round and then bring you in. Yeah.
对，跨文化的我这样的就是我这露西她是埃塞俄比亚的嘛，所以这个也是我后来也在一个纽约的博物馆里看到露西，然后我觉得正因为她可能跟我有非常那个的跨越的距离，然后会让我觉得她好像就是跟我有一个没有任何关系的感觉，但其实我觉得电影是在实现这个跨越本身，就是对，然后顺便我想说的是，其实我觉得那个刚刚Denise 说到的那个跨文化本身的话，其实我觉得在就是在奥斯卡那个片子里面，它就是这个片子的一个我觉得特别精髓的地方所在，因为它也没有试图去很强调这件事情，对，但这个是后面我就是补充的内容啊。Sorry.
So when it comes to transculturality, I mean, in Zhu Xin's film, obviously it's Lucy, and it's very interesting because he actually had this idea when he went to a museum in New York, and he actually saw Lucy. And
it's a fake. Actually, I'm not sure about the. Maybe it's
for sure it's fake.
But which one is the real? Which one is the real? There's a real one. It's real bone. You know the structure and the bones. There's a real one. In the world, it must be some. Yeah, sorry. No.
A museum in New York,
Yeah.
and he thought that that there's no connection between him and Lucy, but actually, the cinema is making connections, and yes, and when it comes to the transculturality, also in Oskar's film, he thinks that it's not so visible.
我说这是他的精髓所在，然后我觉得就是他的没有那么去刻意强调的这个视角，它恰恰是很好的，不是不好，我觉得是很好的，对，就是。
所以你就没有强调就是跨文化的这个元素。
我说他的那个片子的精髓就是是跨文化本身，对，但他没有去强调它。
Right. Yeah. So in your film, Oskar, it's like it is all about transculturality, but you don't stress it, especially just to it's quite natural.
然后那个视角的出现，就会让你觉得就是它的特别，我才理解它的就是那个用心所在，对。That's it. Okay.
Yes. So when it comes to the perspective, is that it's very natural.
我才明白为什么他要拍这个电影。对对。
So he understood why you want to shoot this film.
But I'm curious what you mean exactly. Besides Oskar's presence in the film, could you maybe talk about what else you see as transcultural in his film? If there's something else, because you maybe refer to something else as well?
OK， 像在你的电影就是梅林跟这个方言跟普通话，就是跨文化的一种。
It's a little bit hard to understand what is transculture for me because I never.
That's really German's thing.
Yeah. Wait a second.
But I should say, in your film, I can recognize that in the scene that the colleagues, the friends, they explain each other what happens actually. I watched 2 times your movie, and then after second time I thought, okay, what could happen if we didn't have this dialogue or monologue for the friends without her and put that out. What I have as an audience to understanding that she become the house. And what I think that's really artistic what you did, that was the first time as she wrote on the wall and the other one just read it, and that for me was done. I don't want to be really bad guy in this round, but I didn't need that. The other explained. I could just stay with the first one and see every day she lost one of the scenes and become more or less. Do you mean what I mean? And what I say for me was this explained for the people like me, that just being sure what happened in this movie and not going out with the many questions that say, she become a home.
I think are you saying that I should have cut that scene?
No. I found it
totally
really,
fine.
no. I found it really
mind.
clever as she wrote that.
Oh,
but
yeah,
the
sure.
continuity of what happened, actually, I got it. I didn't need again and again explain, okay, what's happened with Anne? Okay, Anne today, she can't hear. Do you mean what I mean? I watched it.
Yeah, that's I think that's probably fair. So fine. I guess because we didn't really have and maybe this is excusing it. It is what it is. But we didn't have a script per se. Everything was workshopped on the day, so we had a kind of scene outline, and then we would try to run the scene according to that scene outline, and because of that there is a bit of repetition. What I wanted to say before, just on the point of sort of transcultural sort of cinema, and maybe connecting it to Zhu's film a bit more, was, well, for me, what I wanted to do was to I guess just suggest or even indicate to my own position as a filmmaker within the film, as in the Iranian tradition, perhaps not as beautifully, but that's something that I wanted to do, to sort of bring the camera into this idea of the relationship between myself living there and then also these people who are working on this house. And I wanted to ask Zhu, what was, I understand that you were setting up this idea with, on the one hand, this language and this attempt to communicate across culture perhaps, or perhaps time as well. And then also this idea of the camera being there and capturing these moments, these images that were then used to investigate the truth of this story. So I wonder, how did you conceive of these two ideas coming together, and where do you see the differences between the two? Is that something that you were trying to get at? This idea that the camera was in some ways more universal and a more universal language that we can understand compared to spoken word and written word.
对，就是我觉得，首先这个电影我关心的一个问题，它其实就是最小的单位和最大的单位的关系。然后，在这个里面，我觉得共同的语言其实最基础的它是由动作构成的，然后我们通过动作的，我们透过这些动作来，收获一些感受，获得一些感受，然后我觉得在这之后，才就是有了爱的产生，然后，所以其实这是两条路径，但它最终是为了在某一个时间，变成一个就是穿透性的一个点，就是从。
It's very nice. These translation breaks give us time to pour in some rum.
Sorry, yeah.
就是它可能就像是之前就是本来一张纸它有两个点，然后它突然对折，然后就是穿过去了，就跟那个黑洞一样。OK。
好 OK。So when it comes to language, it's very important that the language starts with the movement. Like also you can have just a body language, for example, and and from this language, body language, you can also get some feelings, and that's how the love is created. And so, for example, it's from movement. So I guess you can also kind of connect it to cinema as a movement. And it's like, for example, you have a sort of portal, and there are two strings from two sides. And it actually, even though these two strings are in different times and spaces, they can be connected through this portal. So, yeah.
That's the structure. I think I try to use that in the film because I focus on the film structure. It's the most important part, and also I was very interested in Oscar's film structure because like he put the dancing scene at the end of the film. It's the only like sometimes it's like maybe explain the sound source or something, but I think it's more interesting. More than that. It's more than that. It's I think because we see a separate something from the sound, which maybe like the house is dancing, maybe just at the beginning and in the middle of the film. There's 2 or 3 times I hear the sound, and also the actress is still hearing the sound. So I think this is the very interesting structure for me. Like I can feel he designed it for a very interesting perspective. Yeah, I think for me like it's a 好，我想一下，其实就是这样，对，it's just这非常好的一个结构，我学习。
Yeah, so it's just that the structure is great. So and he learned a lot from that.
Really? I learned a lot from your structure as well. I need to be more creative, I think, with my my film structuring. Because I mean, I wish I could be so bold as what you were in the way that you edited your scenes together and linked the time and place and people in a really complex and emotionally resonant way. For me, I simply just put Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then into sort of dispersed sort of moments of kind of energy. But I think we were very aware of the kind of fairy tale kind of, fantasy sort of storybook structure, and I'm interested in that. I really find that something that I can work with, that provides really strong boundaries and a strong kind of framework that propels forward. So that was why we went with that.
Yes, I know. Yes. As I said, we do one round. Yes, please.
Now? Yes. Okay. Hi. Thank you, Anna. I actually want to offer up a comment of critique, also maybe a bit inspired by the absence of Julian Warner here tonight, hoping that perhaps I can fill in some space, of course not appropriately, to what he might have contributed to the conversation, because I'm thinking a lot about the second film we watched. I'm very moved and very touched by the first film. I really enjoyed the poetics of it and the like non-linear narrative of it really touched me. And now to my comment of critique to the second movie, because this movie, the narrative of it draws on the embodied violence of colonial exploitation of this figure, of this character. And while that is the subject of the movie, I feel like the curation of it and your presence as the director of it aren't quite living up to the potential of this narrative of resisting this exploitation, or actually speaking up against it or leaning up against it. And now listening to you talk about how this movie came to be, when you're saying these people, they worked all day cleaning the house, and after this work they continue working on your movie, yet none of them are here. You are the director who's sitting here traveling, talking about your movie, and we can't hear their stories. I'm wondering, are they still working in this house? Because then it just feels to me like a little, you get to play a little bit of, oh, what if we could speak against these colonial violent structures, and then you cut the movie and leave, and it's like this new form of colonialism actually. And I also want to emphasize that we have been talking about the subjects of the film as subjects of colonialism, when actually everyone is a subject of colonialism. We have heard nothing about your own ties to colonialism, about your story from Australia perhaps, why you are leaving it to make movies somewhere else, why there's settlements in Nairobi at all, and why you as a white man come holding up your camera, hiding behind the camera, and actually perpetuating centuries of colonial exploitation by that. Thank you.
Okay. That's a lot to take on. Thank you for your comment. I don't think I can respond to that in the entirety, the complexity that it deserves, and maybe potentially with Zhu here as well, or with another film here. And I wouldn't want to take up too much airtime doing that, so I'm happy to continue this conversation afterwards with you if you'd like. I think from my perspective...
No, this was not an invitation for continued conversation. Sorry for misunderstanding.
Okay.
This is not an invitation to have a further conversation with you.
You just wanted to say something, is that right? Okay, well, did you want me to respond or no? Well, I would like to respond, if that's okay.
Of course, I'm interested.
I would definitely like to respond. I think for one, for me, what I have taken away from this experience, like I said before, I've been to Nairobi many times. I know these people, and I think why I feel like this movie can be shown is because the people who made it wanted to make it, and I think there needs to be a space for cross-cultural collaboration in some form, and I think you can, when you know it's valuable, and obviously there's a huge gap and bridge and challenges to doing that, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be tried. And I think this is an attempt to try that, and to try to work through these challenges, through these ideas in a process that's collaborative and that does involve people in the process of making the film. And if you went over there and you asked them, they would say that they wanted to make this film, and they are happy and satisfied that it's being shown over here in Europe. And in the case of me being here by myself, I feel rather complicated feelings about that, but that's the unfortunate case, is that we simply couldn't pay to bring everyone over like they should have. So whether that's a sufficient answer or not is another question, but that's the unfortunate case of it. And I'm up here trying to explain to you, or trying to give you an insight into the film, and hopefully give you some things to think about as well from it.
I think your comment, or question, rather comment, as you say, refers also exactly to what we discussed in the beginning. I mean, the feeling you have now watching the film, and you come to a different conclusion than me. I come to the conclusion that I feel the film manages to somehow resolve this problematic position you have as a filmmaker in that space, and that you are naming and making visible that responsibility or the past by putting yourself in the film. The question is whether, well, in your case, seemingly this kind of gesture of self-consciousness or maybe critique comes across as maybe too lightly or too ironic, I guess. But I think it's similar to what you thought when you watched the film, that you had doubts about it when you watched the film without knowing Oskar or the background.
I know the picture of the Oskar, and then watched the movie, and then I was just, what the heck? Because exactly, I was the same opinion. As I said to Denise, she's one of the people of color, and I trust her vision. And I didn't tell her which skin color has the director, and that was the other kind of response what she had. And I tried to go to her head and be fair enough to just watch the movie and recognize this pain has what Denise from great-grandmother knows. Do you know what I mean? And that's difficult. It's some opinion. I think because I'm a little bit from Middle East, I'm a little bit distant. I could be a little bit distant with the theme, but I should say, if something is about Middle East and so many things, the white people try to make something, and I'm just really loud and really aggressive, and everyone can explain, no, it's not that, but I am really loud. Because of that, I can really understand this opinion. And one thing, we should really be fair. How many people of the color coming here and making movie about us? How many movies we need from the vision of the white people in not white people countries? I think we should accept that we have a flight, we have a small cameras, we can make other kind of dialogue. That the people that are people of the color allowed to make about us and get great red carpets and festivals, because they can do it, but no one is interested. Do you know what I mean? The dialogue is just monologue, not the dialogue. And I hope we are coming in the time that the people from Africa coming and making movies about Europe and their youth. And we have a screening in Berlin and at the Berlinale.
Also, you were actually referring to the curatorial framing of the night, like showing these two films together, also added up to the maybe effect of the second film on you. I don't, if I understood it correctly, but I'm actually curious to talk about this as well, because Narges, you mentioned in the beginning that you enjoyed the combination, but we haven't really talked about the combination of the two films, like what they do together. Could we go into that, and also in relation to the politics of the second film, or also the first film, of course, which also refers.
No, I'm really glad if we just watch the movie without that background. I watched the movie. I just watched the movie because of the movie, first of all, and they have the dialogue. They are just really a nice conversation between. For me, is both of them is about the motherhood. Without what you explained, for me is this just motherhood, and what's happened actually for us as a human beings is the kind of language, and that's the reaction. What happened that's during this civilization till today, and then coming to end with this house in this area. I watched it, both of them together as a long poesy about the humanity, and everything comes from the woman or giving the birth in such a difficult situation. For me was this kind of the pain of the woman, kind of the language and the love. As I said at the beginning, we were one, and we are now separated. That means all we being bonded, and she too, in the movie from Oskar. I watched both of the movie behind each other like this. I read it like this.
Would the others like to comment? Like, how do you see your films in combination? Like, what happens when you see them together?
就是去理解就是首先理解房子，我觉得是因为我最开始是就是没有想到就是这个房子在比方说在奥斯卡的电影里的意义是什么，就是如果没有看过这个电影，我不知道 be a house 是什么意思。那么在我的片子里面，母亲让孩子来打扫房间，那其实也是一个对于孩子来说最开始他觉得没有意义的事情，但对我来说，房子的存在是他们为了建立他们两个人之间的联系，所以我觉得很有趣的是，通过一个看上去像是 metaphor 的东西，房子，但实际上我们找到了电影本身它要去做的更重要的一件事情，但是房子是，我觉得会是一个很重要的信号，
So what the two films have in common is the house, and in my film, I mean in Oscar's film, for example, the house, I mean I got I understood the meaning of the house only after watching the film, and then in my film, so the mother just orders the son to go tidy the house, and at first there's no the son thinks that there's no sense, that there's no meaning in tidying the house, but through this activity there is a connection that is built between them, so it's just a metaphor, but yes, through this metaphor, like the whole meaning can be well built.
Yes， 对，然后我后面说就是，对，它就是一种，我后面说的什么我有点忘记了，forget it. But I think house, yeah, I think this project is very good about to understand house. It's just a 名词。
就是 it's just a noun.
It's just a noun, but
It's just a noun. Yeah.
but we can understand a lot maybe after watching those two films because the different house. But one of I see the Oscar's house is like in a voice, and sometimes it's like I really enjoyed the scene that the actress is lying down on the floor, you know, to lay like they're close to the floor. Sometimes that just makes me think about some fairy tale thing that's become, you know, in China there's a tale which the 二郎神 become a house. You know how to translate 二郎神. Okay, so it's a tale. Someone is becomes a house in a fairy tale. So I really enjoyed the maybe it's a metaphor, but the metaphor is like maybe the deep idea is trying to 去传达一些东西。
Yes. It's through metaphor. Yeah, there's an attempt to transmit more meaning.
If there are more comments, just is somebody there already with a question? Yeah, there's one from the front. Okay, there's another one back there. Yeah.
喂，好，那个我就说中文，因为我很想那个表达一下我的对那个朱星导演的那个祝贺。我觉得我第一次看你的片子，我非常的惊艳，然后大家都说了很多，然后就是很诗意化的这种表现，然后我觉得特别不像一个特别年轻的人能够拍出来的，就我看你感觉很年轻，然后这种很深情的、很温柔的，然后讲述母子之间的这种关系，然后这种意象化的东西，一个苹果，然后两个故事，还有就是你说的通过演员的这些动作或者你设计的这个情节上的动作，然后去表现、去推动情节，我觉得我都可以在这些动作当中感觉到的就是他透过出来的呼吸这种感觉，尤其最后一个镜头，然后让我觉得特别撕扯，一下子就泪崩了，感觉我是觉得我是想问你一个问题，就是你为什么在这个片子里感觉上好像有一点点玄学的东西放在里面
？But actually, for the audience, I think they need to.
Yeah, just I will translate.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So in Zhu Xin's film, I was just very surprised that actually it was so powerful, and it didn't seem as if it was a film that was made by such a young director. Yes, and then especially with the structure and also with the two stories kind of connected by an apple. And there's so many details that yes, it's like kind of it is all breathing. 然后你想问的问题是，你可以重复再来说一遍吗？
metaphysics.
Yes. Yeah. So. And so the question was about the metaphysical part in the film.
Yeah, it's because there's layers of in the films, and maybe the layer, maybe like our skin, there's maybe something which is like the kid and the master, they're trying to understand the picture, they maybe tell something, in China we can see 手相, right? The hand, the way.
Yeah, so it's like a pattern on the hand.
Yeah. We can say something right. It's the like the maybe the misunderstanding of the like the truth, but like it's also like me and my mother. We understand we got misunderstanding with each other, and then it's some find some clue and go deeper. So the mysterious. I like mysterious, like to maybe like a detective. I can, solve a case. So at first, if the second story is beginning, so you can see the mysterious at first. It's not maybe a kind of some logical things, but in my head, so like animation, which takes you deeper. Then you discover, oh, it's mysterious, but the answer is from the mother. Maybe, yeah. Thank you for your. Okay, 这个我可以。谢谢。
Since it's getting late, I think we can take maybe another question. And then continue outside. Yeah.
Rather than
Could you use the mic? Sorry. So the people in the back hear you.
Yeah. Thank you for the films. I'll try to make it quick. I'm interested in, Dennis, your perspective on the title of today's program, Unsigned, and why you chose to program these two together. But also I'm wondering, rather than the cultural aspects, I'm wondering about the boundary between human and non-human in both your films. To want to become a house is to want to become non-human, in some ways to lose agency, right? So, I'm very, very curious as to where that desire might come from. It is like a fairy tale, as you said. And also in your film, Lucy and her mother, Lucy has the power of language and she becomes the first human, and the mother is non-human. And this is like an archetype. Every generation has to have its own Lucy and mother. Every generation is doomed to not understand its next generation. So it keeps repeating in your film. So Lucy and the relationship to her mother. And that ties to what, Narges, you said, this unity breaking because of language, this whole Babel thing. Your thoughts on human and non-human in your films? Is that something that you thought about?
Thanks, Shri. Thank you for that question. Yeah, for sure. With our film, it was, as I mentioned before, just about, I guess, this idea of using this house as a metaphor, and I think we were using just this single idea, and I suppose in that context, it was about this woman who was sick of being subjugated to this colonial framework, and instead wanted to become, somehow remove herself from her human body and actually just embody, or disembody herself and become this framework that existed, which again has its complications, obviously, because it's a human construct, and I suppose that's an idea that we were kind of exploring, I guess, in our sense.
我觉得，对，就是在这个电影里面，主角他经历的是毕业，他从一个青年走向了社会，这是一场成人礼，其实对于很多人来说。
So when it comes to my film, the main character is going through graduation. So he becomes he matures, he becomes an adult.
也在某种程度上，他需要去可能学会一些他母亲原来给他的忠告，或者听进去理解他，然后并且真的就像可能就是 我觉得其实某种程度上也会让我联想到露西最开始她是如何从一个猿变成人的，所以与其说对，是人与非人，不如说是成为人的一个对。Thank you.
Yes, and the son just has to kind of try, or he starts to understand what his mother was saying to him this whole time when she was just nagging him. And the process of Lucy, so it's a maturity, like a process of maturity, and the process from which the Lucy kind of starts from it becomes human. It's very similar to this process. So it's a question of not the human and non-human, but it's a question of being mature and immature.
Thank you.
Regarding the title of the program, so actually, well, it's always the case, like when we curate programs, not always have we seen the films together in that order beforehand. So this is also like learning in progress. So the layers which are now addressed in this evening, not all of them we had seen before when we put the films together. For us, definitely one relation between them was an approach to language, be it spoken language or others. So both films seem to be interested in going beyond concrete politics, but rather coming from a philosophical urge to go deeper or beyond what we can put into words. At least that was one feeling I had when we put them together. The question of authorship is very interesting in both of the films. In your film, it's very strongly felt. Well, actually, in both of them, I think it's very strongly felt. You're present as an author within the film, and in your case, also the main character is writing one of the layers of the film while it unfolds. So we thought, yeah, there are quite a few resonances. We were worried about that the program might be too slow or too long. But when I watched it today, I didn't feel at all that was the case. But maybe for you it's different. And I think what you refer to, like when we speak about questions of how we read films politically or circumstances of oppression connected to them, be they connected to a colonial past or other layers of oppression. Sometimes I notice also in myself that some layers I don't see immediately, like for example the one-child policy in China and the layers of oppression within society in China. I do personally not know that well because I've only been for 1 week in China in my life, and I keep exchanging with people, but the pressures under which filmmakers are, how you resolve the questions of censorship, being unable to finance your work, and also potentially worse problems which can arise from creating critical art in China. Often I oversee them, and in case of your film, the layer of the one-child policy I had not even noticed when I watched it because there was so much else to see. So yeah, as you speak about your film, I also notice the many layers it has. And when we talked about before in dinner and when we met as persons, this became like so central. And also for you, your relation to your mother, and how it was affected by the fact that you're an only child and people in your generation are thinking so much about this. I had not noticed, like this layer, this whole philosophical layer which is so central in your film, I had not seen. So that there's actually a connection in terms of power dynamics or present and past of oppression between the films which is so strong, and also the layer that your film refers to Ethiopia. I had simply forgotten. Like even now in the conversation, when I addressed it, I was like, your film is not transcultural, but I had literally forgotten after watching the film that you refer to Ethiopia and that while I was watching them, I saw the connection so strongly, and I was like, ooh, we really curated this on the nose. But I had not thought about this when we curated it. So yeah, it's always a certain, I would say, a gamble, and there can be risks of overseeing something when putting films together. And it's always like very, very fascinating what happens when we see work together. Yeah. I didn't want to have the last word, so if anybody wants to comment on that,
No, you are great. That was the best last word, I think. That's amazing,
Agreed.
and you did really well, and I'm really glad. And thank you very much. Thank you that you're sitting here. I learned a lot, and yeah, congratulations, both of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you all. And thank you for your comments and questions and for staying.